Hello everybody, welcome back to rainy Scottsdale, Arizona. Much to Birm's disappointment, you can't even see Mummy Mountain right today as our chief meteorologist at Lettermen Row continues to be devastated by
even the hump on the camelback is missing.
You can't see anything out here in the rain. I've got some news for you though, Birm. It's going to be perfect 72 and dry tomorrow night.
And it's going to be 50 and sunny tomorrow throughout the day here in the metropolitan Phoenix area.
Oh, for your tailgating pleasure, if you're joining us out here in the desert. This is the Playoff Drive brought to you by Byers Auto. That's Tim May. That's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. Just one more day until Clemson and Ohio State out here in the college football playoff. Had a chance this morning to talk to Dabo Swinney and Ryan Day, the last sort of preparations. Any big takeaway for you this morning, Tim?
Well, I had 3 quickies for Ryan Day, and they both had a chuckle about that. Justin Fields, I guess, is great.
Great.
According to Ryan Day. And like everybody, I mean, I even asked this question. You asked some too, but I asked the question, Ryan Day, are you looking forward to this chess match with Brent Venables, the highly regarded defensive coordinator for Clemson? Because we all know that 3 years ago, before Ryan Day showed up at Ohio State lost that chess match big time.
Yeah.
When you score Zippo, you have no chance of winning.
That is correct.
I mean, I think Ryan Day is eager. I'm quitting using the term champing at the bit because some guy says, no, it's chomping. I go, no, it's champing, but I digress. He's eager to, I think, get into this game and kind of match wits with that dude.
It's interesting to look at this because if you had Clemson's defensive front, Birm, from a couple years ago, you'd think, well, that's going to be a much tougher row to hoe, but
it would have been.
I don't look at this Clemson defense as anywhere near what it was from 16 or even the last couple years when they were in the college football playoff. And I think that there are a lot of opportunities where Ryan Day's got to be feeling pretty good going into tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, what Clemson does defensively is about multiplicity, right? It's about being able to confuse people pre-snap, but also to switch up from a 3-4 to a 4-3 to man to zone. And that's really what the goal is, because they don't have the personnel that they've had in the last few years on the defensive side of the ball. Those guys are coming, like that's the future of Clemson football, but that's just not right there now. They do have a very young roster. I think you have like 40 guys, 45 of maybe, that are sophomores or freshmen on their team. So, like, if you're going to get them, this may be the time to get them for Ohio State, considering the Buckeyes are so veteran. To me this morning, what you could see was one guy who's been here 5 times and feels pretty comfortable, and another guy just sort of let that guy talk. And maybe that's Ryan Day's way of just saying, hey, this is you. And Ryan is a very thoughtful person, and you could sort of just see the wheels turning in his head every single time Dabo was daboing.
I don't think there's any coach that's going to get a word in edgewise with Dabo around, and he's a freewheeling, kind of showboating guy. When you asked your question, he was up there going, 1, 2, that's. Obviously, that is partly because he's comfortable on the stage, but also it's because that's just who he is. That's his whole persona. And so I think Ryan Day was content to sit there, get through it, and try not to say a whole bunch, especially about Justin Fields.
I think Ryan Day also was selling yet another style of sport jacket. He's like you say, he's getting those from a guy from Akron. What he told you the other day?
That red one is sharp.
Man, that red one, that one's a pretty sharp jacket, and we've seen him in a few of those. But yeah, I think Ryan Day, like I said, I think he's eager because he knows he knows what's up here. He knows Ohio State has never beaten Clemson. Ohio State got shut out by Clemson. He also knows that's before he ever showed up at Ohio State.
Right.
And this is as I've explained it many times this week, this is as deep an Ohio State offense. And we've only talked about the offense yet, but deep in Ohio State offense. By that I mean the things it can get to if A, B, C, and D are done. They have an E, the A, B, C, and D. They have an E and an F, or a G. That's what's going to be intriguing tomorrow night. But what's really going to come down to, and I know we talked about this a bunch, you got to have guys make plays, because these teams, like Dabo said, they are mirror images in a lot of respects. Extremely talented. Yes, Clemson's defensive front could use a little more seasoning maybe, but boy, if you watch their last several games, they kind of took control of games up front. Who were they playing? Big question, right? But the bottom line is, doesn't matter, they still took control, and that's what they wanted. They're coming in, I think, with a lot of confidence on what they're about, and number 2, a lot of ability.
What's kind of funny about this matchup to me as the week has gone on and the Disrespect Bowl has played out, the conversation about it. Like Damon Arnett, I got a quote from him for a story that Birm wrote yesterday about DBU versus wide receiver U with that key matchup for the game. And Arnett's like, well, it feels like for us, every time there's another big game, they say it's a test. But somehow that hasn't applied to Clemson, which didn't play anyone the entire season.
Well, they didn't play any big games.
That is, but they're not saying, well, this is Clemson's first test, because
they haven't played against a like personnel team.
They haven't played a talent-equated game since last year's playoff.
But I think that's the thing with Clemson, is that it's the same thing that happened last year. So if people saw that this is what they did, right? You have 12, 13 games of warm-up against teams that you can't lose to, and then you have essentially 3.5 months of preparing for the teams that you could lose to, and that's a big advantage.
Clemson is built for the college football playoff.
Dabo talked about it this morning. He said, well, if one of the teams here didn't play a conference championship game, maybe it's different. Clemson didn't play a conference, so they had 13 weeks to prepare for this stuff. And I guarantee you, and they'll never admit it, but I guarantee you they've been looking at Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, Georgia. They've been looking at these teams all year long, waiting for these moments. And that's a huge advantage when you don't have to finish the season with Michigan State and Wisconsin and Penn State and Michigan and Wisconsin again. Like, that is a different road to hoe if we're going to continue to use that.
Yeah, that's twice in one show. I guess my question is, this particular Clemson team, they're not last year's national championship team. There's a lot of familiar faces on that team, but I'm just wondering if there's something to the fact that they are untested, that the only time they went down to the wire was against the North Carolina team that honestly would have no business, should have had no business beating them whatsoever. And the fact that these Ohio State players, like the other conversation is they've never been in the playoff. Like, how will they handle the environment? Well, they've already played, 3 top 13 teams in a row. They had to actually go through a fight to win the Big Ten. It's like,
I think that's why it's so important what we talked about yesterday. The Buckeyes have to come out of the gate in this game aggressive and put points on the board early, because if that doubt creeps in at all, that's when things start to go in a weird direction quickly. And I know they've been able to bounce back against Wisconsin. But this isn't Wisconsin. This is a much different team they're playing, and a team that has, whether or not it's fair to compare the 2016 game or the 2013 game or 1977 game, like, this is a different team, obviously, but there's that little doubt in the back of your head when all of a sudden you're like, why can't we get over this stupid hump?
Some programs have some programs' numbers, and you don't ever want to, like Ryan Day said, this is about this year. But it's funny how history does repeat itself in weird ways.
We say the same thing every last few years with the Michigan game. It's like, this year's different, but it doesn't matter because every other year has been like this.
But you play Michigan every year.
Or I also told you that it wasn't going to be different because it's happened every single way. The same way, history repeating every single time. Rolling along here on the playoff drive, brought to you by Byers Auto. Big confirmation, I guess, what we've seen with the availability report now out for Ryan Day. No game time decisions, no new names that are out for tomorrow night. So that means even if they're not 100%, whatever the percentage is that we joked about yesterday, Justin Fields is ready to go. Shaun Wade is ready to go with that lower body injury. Damon Arnett with the back and a new cast, he's going to play. All those starters, with the exception of Jonathan Cooper, the projected starters, will all be out there. And that's a huge deal.
I thought another name that was on the depth chart, and we'll see if it's accurate, is ready to go, is Josh Allaby. Backup left tackle, backup right tackle, really, when you think about it. And you got Nicholas Petit-Frere there as a backup too. Just wanted to throw that name out there, see if Frenchie would jump on it.
I think I got it right this week.
But the bottom line is because we remember how Josh Allaby came in key situation this year, how he played in the Rose Bowl last year and placed up there at Munford and played a great game in my opinion. So that's as key as anything else in the depth chart. I agree with you, and I just keep looking at that depth chart, and it says Justin Fields and then Gunnar Hoke or Chris Chuganoff. It says Demario McCall or Master Teague III.
A few of those updates have not been made.
Yeah, I asked Mike Yursich about the backup quarterback situation on Media Day, because earlier in the week we were watching practice. Gunnar Hoke was the guy taking second-team reps, and we were like, hey, that's a little different. And I said, what is this about? And he said, Gunnar's going to be here next year. We're just getting him some extra reps.
Yeah.
If it comes down to a situation on Saturday night where Justin Fields goes out, Chris Chuganoff is still the guy going in, not Gunnar Hoke.
Remember, we were all talking. Everybody was talking about Haskins a couple of years ago out here. As a matter of fact, it's 2016, and what a great practice he had, et cetera. So.
Yeah, this is. that's a difficult balancing act where we've talked about it a bunch, where this isn't a traditional bowl game, and Ohio State hasn't really had that week where they could just let young guys get reps.
Right.
So you have to kind of find it where you can. The other name on the depth chart that was updated recently, you have Garrett Wilson on top of the punt returner. That's been the case now for 4 or 5 games, but you look at this one, this is not a matchup where you can let something slip in the special teams. You can't muff a punt and give Clemson a free possession. It's going to be inside. He's not going to have to deal with a lot of that other stuff, but Garrett Wilson is going to have to be at his best. And Tim, you've talked about him a lot.
The most skill thing to do in football is field a punt. And then you add wind and rain and cold into it, which we saw him have a couple of problems against Rutgers and Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't afford to have that happen. Like we were talking about last night. Why don't you just let them hit? I mean,
just send all 11.
Like Birm was saying,
Garrett's
5 more yards.
Garrett wants to make a big play. So
Yeah.
that's his dynamic. That's who he is. He thinks if he gets the ball in his hands, he's going to score a touchdown. And you've seen on the punt return game all year long, he's been very close to breaking one. And Wisconsin, or the Rutgers game, Michigan game, that was when Ohio State had sort of stretched out the lead, and it looked like they were just about to put the icing on the cake. And then he was like, "Okay, I'm just going to end it myself and return a punt for a touchdown."
Yeah.
And then he fumbled. So it's about keeping a level head in this game. Garrett catching the ball wide is as good tracking a football as anybody we'll see go through Ohio State, maybe ever, when it comes to just tracking a ball through the air and catching it. But when it comes down to that moment, that tension of, I'm going to do something right now, maybe tomorrow night is the right time to play a little more
Keep your eye on the ball so you
conservative.
catch it, I think is what you're trying to say.
A couple, fair catches are fine because Ohio State doesn't really need something explosive in special teams, as good as their offense is. Maybe in a talent equated game
this is a damn good defense they're going against. Let's don't get too over the top here.
It doesn't hurt to have a big play in special teams.
We'll see what happens tomorrow. But this is the most talented team they have faced this year on both sides of the ball, in my humble opinion. Do you agree?
I think there's no question that
these are the 2 best teams in the country. And
I think they've probably played a couple teams that are better, I would consider better defensively.
Really?
The numbers, I think, are a little skewed by the opposition. It's not to take anything away from them, but I think when you look at what
Penn State's
Wisconsin and Penn State are 2 very talented defenses.
Agreed.
What Michigan State, they had their struggles.
I guess I just like the athleticism that I see.
I don't disagree with you on that.
On the Clemson side of the ball, for defensive side, they've got guys that can run with guys.
And it's sort of a mismatch because Clemson's front back 7 is probably better than Penn State's, but that front 7, that's where you get into.
Penn State athletically up front was better than anybody Ohio State's played this season, especially their front 4, their athleticism. And then you had what Micah Parsons was able to do.
Yeah.
And that's where Isaiah Simmons worries me a little bit.
Yeah.
Saw the same thing in the first half against Wisconsin.
Right. You saw what Chris Orr did against Ohio State twice this year.
Yeah.
And so that free-ranging linebacker guy that kind of has the ability to improvise and go on his own, like that to me is the guy that scares me. And it's not because it's Isaiah Simmons.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the key component to a Brent Venables defense, is that guy.
Well, and it's also why Justin Fields needs to be able to move.
Exactly. And that's why I'm as curious as you guys are to see how well Justin Fields moves early in the game. But then that Wisconsin game, he looked sort of, he ran a couple times, but he didn't look like a real guy, early in that game. And all of a sudden, the second half, he kind of channeled Dwayne Haskins Jr. and got it done another way.
And now it's when it's time to get it done and extending, as we saw with the famous play against Michigan and the one that you and I have talked about, and I said it was the most underrated play in the Big Ten title game, rolling out 3rd and 8, Chris Olave, 50 yards.
Yes.
Really turn that. As long as he can do that, as I've said all week on the playoff drive, brought to you by Byers Auto, Ohio State can be fine offensively.
Yeah, when you can break
contain,
form, break form is what I'm more looking at, and keep a play alive. But these receivers have learned to play with him as this season has gone along.
Right.
That's where you really get things against a defense like Clemson.
All right, it's time for you guys. It's what you've been waiting for all week. We're finally about 24 hours away from that kickoff. So these guys have got their score predictions. Mine is written down. It's going to be on Lettermen Row tomorrow morning, but I'll tip my hand a little bit after these guys are done. Tim, what do you expect to see tomorrow night? What is your score prediction for Ohio State Clemson?
Well, I'm just looking at that fake owl that's on the top of that building over there. It's supposed to scare away the birds, but the birds are coming around anyway. Reminded me of one we had in our barn a long time ago.
Yeah, like that.
Wow.
Just when you think something's going to be one way, it's another. It happens another. That's a pretty good analogy there, sort of, not.
You've just been staring at that owl the whole show?
No,
or?
I just noticed it up there. I noticed the birds flocking around it like it's their daddy. But I digress. I'm picking Ohio State 34-31. I don't like to pick 3-point games because I think it's a cop-out, kind of like a fade route.
Yeah.
And when you get it down in the red zone.
Yeah. Hey, can't think of anything else.
Run a real play, right? But I just think this is going to be a close game. And it could be 34-24. And then the team scores late to cut to one. But I like Ohio State 34-31 because, guys, you got to remember, this is the kind of game, there's no tomorrow if you don't win today, meaning Saturday. You've got to let it all hang out. And that's why these games end up being more offensive than you think they're going to be when you look at the great defenses involved.
Yeah.
Because you're going to try everything you can to get the ball to the end zone. 34-31 Ohio State.
Hey, Spencer, come in here and give your score prediction. Can't let you hang for the rest of the week without it. We got Chives coming back from behind the camera. Don't fall into that water there. You've had some time to think about it. What do you got tomorrow?
I've had 38-34 in my head since the game was announced, and it's flipped about 11 times. I think I'm official on 38-34 Ohio State. I just think Justin Fields makes a couple more plays than Trevor Lawrence. I think Ohio State's secondary gets to him a little more than he's expecting. He hasn't seen a secondary like this. I think Chase Young plays a big part in that, but I think Justin Fields makes a couple plays. 38-34.
Okay. 2 votes there. Birm?
You can say it in French if you want.
Like Spencer, I've been back and forth all week. There are days when I feel like Clemson's experience in this type of situation will serve them well. There are other days like today when I sit down and look at it objectively, and I don't think that this is a bad matchup for Ohio State. I know that Clemson's a very good football team, but I don't think that their strengths give them an edge over Ohio State's weaknesses. I think that strength against strength, and I think in that situation a lot of times things get neutralized out and it comes down to 1 or 2 playmakers. And we haven't talked about him all week, but J.K. Dobbins is...
Travis said at the end, and J.K. Dobbins are the keys for both teams.
And they're being so overlooked, and I really think that this game comes down to who's able to run the ball better. And I think that the Buckeyes are going to be able to run the ball better. And I've got a 28-24 type win. I don't think it's going to be super high scoring, but I think you're going to see great football from both teams. I really think this is going to be the game of the year in college football.
From a talent standpoint, from a moxie standpoint, from a confidence standpoint, these teams are both in their element in this game, which is why it could be a great game. That's why, it's hard to put your finger on what it's going to turn on somebody making a play. That was unexpected. Like I said about Benjamin Victor against Penn State 2 years ago. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That woke up everybody. That's what these games come. That's how Clemson beat Alabama last year. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence had a hell of a game. T. Higgins had a ridiculous game. So did the other receivers.
Justin Ross
and Justin Ross. So that's what you gotta. We like I said here and tell you exactly what to expect. What you have to expect is the unexpected.
You have 2 of the most talented teams in the country, 2 of the best coached teams in the country. 2 of the best coaches in the country at the head coach spot, 2 of the best defensive coordinators in the country, 2 of the best offensive lines in the country. You have
defensive staffs that take care of A, that like to do B, but take care of A. If you follow my drift, they're sound. They rarely have guys out of gaps. But they like to mess with your mind. And this is so interesting.
Just last thought is I really think we're in for like an all-time game on Saturday night, and I'm super excited to be able to be on the field for it, no matter what happens. But I think Ohio State 28-24.
Yeah, I tend to agree on the score with a little bit more with Spencer and Tim, just because even when you can play great defense against these teams, they're so talented, they're going to score. You play great defense and get 2 or 3 stops and 1 turnover, you can pat yourself on the back, and that makes the difference. I think both teams are going to be in the 30s, and I think it's going to be 38-31. Buckeyes, it'll be the 100th win for Ohio State since I started covering this team. I think they'll get it in style.
Will they give you a trophy?
I think they should. I'm going to be part of the celebration because, I showed up in 2012 and everything changed for this program.
Well done.
And
well done.
I can't think of any other reason
Maybe
that things.
Joe Burrow will give you his Della Benova t-shirt.
any other reason that things might have changed since 2012.
You've really done it.
But it's been a hell of a ride.
It'll be your 100th win.
And as you guys say,
choice, man.
as you guys said, I can't wait to be out there. It's been a fun week, a long week getting ready for it, especially with doing these playoff drives. Brought to you by Byers Auto all week to get ready I'm ready to actually see the game. We've broken it down about every single way that I think we can. We hope you've enjoyed our coverage at Lettermen Row all week. Obviously, we're going to have a ton more coming on Saturday, and then whatever happens after kickoff out here in Glendale this weekend. Tim, Jeremy Birmingham, Spencer Holbrook, and I will keep providing that coverage for you all the time at lettermenrow.com. For these guys, I'm Austin Ward. This has been the Playoff Drive. We will see you at State Farm Stadium tomorrow night.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got rapid reaction. Hey, and we got Buckeye IQ with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Birm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.